Discover the incredible transformations of those who escape toxicity for an amazing healthy love. Sarah stared at the clock in the dimly lit break room of the hospital, each tick amplifying the chaos in her mind. She could feel Mark's absence like a gnawing wound. As a nurse, she devoted herself to mending others, but in her own life, healing seemed unattainable. Mark, her childhood sweetheart, once promised her the world, yet he had transformed into a shadow of his former self, lost, desperate, shackled by his vices. She hadn't realized how much his turmoil would entwine with hers, pulling her under, drowning her spirit. In the quiet moments, doubt clawed at her. Was it love or obligation? Mark pulled at a heartstring that had frayed far too much. I can't keep doing this, echoed painfully in her mind. Despite her promises to herself and family to protect her spirit, Sarah felt like an understudy in her own life, aspiring for the courage to ask the questions that lingered. Could she really break free? Her breaths grew uneven, each shuddering inhale haunted by the fear of Mark's disappointment. Just a week prior, a heartfelt conversation at their favorite diner had spiraled into an unsettling confrontation. Mark poured out his fears like venom, his dependency now a terrifying chain. The hurtful words he hurled still echoed. You think you're better than me now? They'd felt like buckets of ice water dousing any warmth the memories had once held. Each touch turned heavy with underlying tension, each shared glance laced with unseen fractures. She imagined him drifting further into the abyss while she remained, helplessly watching, a silent plea painted on her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The ensuing days felt like a prolonged descent into darkness. Sarah found the attic, the place where her grandmother's journal sat shrouded in dust and longing. Inside, the pages shared tales of fierce women who rose above the ashes of toxicity, empowered by self-love and resilience. But why couldn't she absorb that strength? The contrasting images of joy and despair twisted inside her, making sleep a distant memory. Every morning, she buried herself in her work, caring for the patients who relied on her. As she bandaged wounds and calmed fears, she mentally frowned. Was she capable of healing her own? The thought felt like a betrayal. And yet, amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of hope arose in the form of Dr. Emma, her unexpected mentor who guided her in prioritizing her happiness. However, every step forward felt shadowed by Mark's controlling grip, his manipulation tightening like a noose, igniting an internal war. As Sarah braced herself, trembling with resolve, she found herself at the diner once more, heart racing with uncertainty. Mark appeared, his eyes gleaming with desperate vulnerability. Sarah, please. I can change, he pleaded. The anguish of their shared history wrapped around her soul. Standing at that table, a wave of conflicting emotions surged. The chaos of love and obligation clasped her heart, but a whisper of courage dared her to speak, to reclaim the narrative written by generations. And as she inhaled deeply, her voice caught in her throat. A familiar face, Blake S., watched from the corner. His presence, warm and steady, offered her a second of clarity amid the storm. Could she take the leap? Or would she let Mark's suffocating longing tether her to a haunted past? The tension hung thick in the air, each second stretching her resolve. The battle within surged, a fight for self-preservation and identity, with potential futures lingering just beyond her grasp. Sarah's throat tightened as she stared into Mark's pleading eyes, the weight of his gaze crystallizing her inner conflict. You can change, she repeated, the mantra she had clung to for so long, yet the words felt hollow. They echoed back hollowly against the diner's tiled walls, highlighting the insincerity they had both come to embody. Standing at the threshold of choice, she sensed the gravity of her own indecision pressing upon her like an anchor. Mark's recent attempts at recovery were nothing more than a flickering candle in the storm, temporary bursts of light swallowed by shadows of past failures. Would she be setting herself up for further heartbreak by allowing a glimmer of hope to reignite? Every piece of advice Dr. Emma had given her resonated in her mind. You deserve to be happy, Sarah, she had insisted during one of their late-night talks about self-worth and healing. Yet each claim felt like a distant truth, shimmering just out of reach. Blake's calm presence was undeniable, providing a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil unspooling within her. His unwavering gaze held an understanding that Mark S. had turned away from long ago. Could she embrace this unfamiliar warmth, this possibility of connection, without feeling guilty? The questions flooded Sarah's mind. Was it a betrayal to consider another when Mark was so achingly desperate? Could she risk her heart again? Meanwhile, Mark S.'s anxiety deepened, his face a tapestry of disbelief mixed with hope. The moment blurred, coalescing into an ultimatum. Who did she want to become? As silence filled the space around them, Sarah's breath caught in her chest. In this moment, clarity ignited within her, illuminating the truth she had buried deep, a truth masked by love's complexity but essential to her growth. She had poured herself into Mark S.'s needs for so long. Enough was enough, she had to honor her own journey now. I need to know that I can be happy without relying on you, she began, her voice steadier than she felt inside. I need to know that I can heal first, for myself. Mark recoiled slightly, the shifting tides of uncertainty breaking across his features. You're throwing me away, he murmured, trembling as his vulnerability shielded itself behind a veil of resentment. No, she countered gently, feeling her voice gain strength. I'm not throwing you away. I'm choosing to find out who I am outside of this. The air hung thick, a palpable tension enclosing them as she held his gaze, searching for understanding in the depths of his despair. Blake's supportive demeanor behind her urged her on, a silent affirmation of her choice. For too long, I've put my dreams, my life on hold, Sarah admitted, her heart pounding with each confession. I need to step into my own light, to explore what I want beyond the darkness. Feeling the emotional barriers gradually crumble, she sensed a shift. In choosing herself, she ventured into uncharted territory, yet she realized this was the beginning of a promising evolution. With every word, she recapturing an irrevocable piece of herself, the empowered woman her grandmother wrote about, brave and seeking happiness. Do what you need to do, Mark finally replied, his voice a whisper in the void between them. Disappointment washed over his features, but a flicker of understanding danced in his eyes, as if he recognized the necessity of transformation for her, and perhaps even for himself. Turning slightly, Sarah caught Blake's gaze. It felt like a silent pact forming between them, an invitation to share burdens and laughter, a chance at something pure and uncomplicated. She didn't know where this path would lead, but for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a surge of motivation to pursue her own happiness, her own story. With a deep breath, she opened herself to the unknown. Can we start over? She asked Blake, a poignant tremor in her voice, but the moment wasn't without its shadows. Sarah glanced back at Mark, whose pain now felt like a dissonant note in the symphony of her choices. Would he truly let her go? And more importantly, would she have the strength to navigate this new beginning amidst the lingering fear of letting go? The uncertainty loomed large, casting doubt on her hopes and dreams. But it was time for her to find the answers. In that pivotal moment, Sarah stood on the edge of reinvention, ready to confront the complications of desire and responsibility in the journey ahead. Just as she took that first tentative step into her new future, romance stirred in unexpected corners. Could this horizon hold promise, or would it bring unforeseen challenges? Stepping away from the diner, Sarah felt the night air wrap around her, cool and fleeting, like the tenuous grip she had on her past. She inhaled deeply, letting the crispness fill her lungs, an antidote to the suffocation she had felt moments before. Yet as invigorating as it was to step outside, doubts twisted in her stomach. Did she truly have what it took to build a life of her own? Blake stood beside her, his presence like a stabilizing force. Yet, as she watched him quietly observe her, Sarah felt both comforted and challenged. Could she allow him to see her brokenness, the remnants of her former self desperately tethered to memories of Mark? They embarked upon a casual stroll. The streets were lazily lit, shadows playing tricks through their subtle illumination. What are you thinking? Blake finally broke the silence, his voice drawing her from her introspection. I'm trying to figure out who I want to be, she responded, her thoughts reeling. For so long, I've defined myself through others. Mark, my job. I've been so busy helping others that I forgot to ask myself what I truly desire. Blake nodded, the understanding in his eyes a soothing balm against her insecurities. It's a powerful realization. Discovering what makes you, you. Not just in the context of relationships, but in career aspirations, hobbies, everything. His affirmation pushed her deeper into reflection. Had she ever given herself the freedom to explore her own passions? The art that had once fed her soul now lay dormant, overtaken by fear and complacency. Sarah had stifled her creativity for years under the weight of worry about Mark's state, about the fallout of breaking away. She turned to Blake, her heart pounding. But what if I fail? What if I start painting again and it's not everything I hoped for? Failure is part of growth, he replied simply. It's better to try and discover than to wonder what could have been. As Sarah processed his words, she felt an eruption of restlessness. It was time to confront the clinging vines of insecurity that had rooted in her spirit since childhood. She took a detour toward a nearby art studio she used to visit. The door creaked open, and the familiar sense of paint and canvas flooded her senses, evoking a long-buried desire. You used to love this place, Blake remarked, his voice low with intrigue. I did until I let other people's expectations drown my passion, she admitted, a spark igniting in her chest. With each step inside, Sarah felt the weight of regret dissipate. As she wandered from canvas to canvas, the urge to create swelled within her. I want to paint again, she announced, surprising even herself with the assertiveness in her voice. Then let us make it happen, Blake responded, enthusiasm blending with a sense of admiration. You shouldn't have to navigate this alone. Elation surged through her, mixing with uncertainty. Could this newfound resolve withstand the inevitable challenges ahead? Amid the uncharted waters of her desires, there lingered the shadow of guilt that still cast over Mark. Drawing herself into a quiet corner of the studio, Sarah's fingers brushed against the textures of unpainted canvases. Would their relationship hold if she followed her pursuits? She envisioned herself creating again, and the image was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. As she stood in front of a blank canvas, brush in hand, a flicker of excitement washed over her. In this freedom, she glimpsed the potential for not only artistic rebirth but also personal transformation. Yet the echo of Mark's heartache loomed, and suddenly she felt a wave of doubt crash over her. Was it selfish to focus on herself when he still struggled? Her heart raced with conflicting emotions, compelling her to make a decision. Standing at this juncture, Sarah understood that true evolution required both risk and introspection. In that moment, she resolved to invest in herself, to embrace the uncertainties ahead. Blake's voice brought her back, grounding her amidst the swirling chaos. What do you want to express first? Sarah paused, the question igniting sparks within her. I want to depict the journey of letting go of toxicity and fear. Just as inspiration poured out, uncertainty washed over her again. Blink, blink, the memories of who she was and who she wanted to become flickered like an old film reel. But stepping into the unknown was essential now. She was ready to embrace the way forward, to create and to evolve, to let the colors of her existence blend into a masterpiece unique to her. The decision to start was as daunting as it was necessary, but that first stroke on the canvas would be a testament to her rebirth. Sarah took a deep breath and began to paint, her heart racing with exhilaration intertwined with dread. How would she navigate her emotions as she rebuilt her world? What would becoming a true artist mean for her journey? The colors came alive, but so did the questions about her past, her future, and the choices yet to be made. In that balance hung the threads of her destiny, waiting for her to unravel them into something beautiful. With each stroke on the canvas, Sarah felt the brushed colors pull her deeper into the realm of possibility. The initial uncertainty lingered like a distant memory, overshadowed by the pulsating rhythm of her inspiration. The vivid hues she brought to life weren't merely paint on canvas, they mirrored her internal struggle, the chaotic dance of her fears, hopes, and aspirations. As the image formed, a tumultuous landscape of jagged edges and bright swathes, each brushstroke unearthed more of her heart's hidden turmoil. Was this really the path she intended to follow? The question pricked at her as she layered color upon color, a striking contrast of vibrant reds and tepid grays. Sarah paused, contemplating what her art was beginning to express. What if this is just an echo of my pain? She muttered under her breath, already anticipating Blake's reaction. But he merely stood back, absorbing the energy she unleashed with her passion. It's authentic, he encouraged, intrigue glinting in his eyes. Embrace it. Remember, your journey doesn't have to be a polished product from the get-go. His words were soothing yet unsettling, stirring something within her. In the past, she had constantly measured herself against the expectations of others, fearing judgment more than celebrating authenticity. Perhaps it was time to shed that old skin, to strip back the layers she had so carefully cultivated, exposing the raw Sarah beneath. As her brush danced across the canvas, drawing in the tumult of emotions, she confronted the specter of Mark once more. Memories of their time together clawed at her resolve, questioning if she was leaving him behind. Was she permitted to reclaim her identity? The familiar guilt began its ugly climb up her throat. No, don't let him possess your happiness, she fiercely whispered to herself. He has his path, and you have yours. The canvas nearly vibrated with the intensity of her inner turmoil, transforming from a prison of old regrets into a canvas of confrontation. Each time she dipped her brush in the vibrant colors, she reminded herself of the necessity behind her choices, determined not to permit past experiences to dictate her future. Time drifted as she painted fervently, adding details that mirrored her fight, sparks of brightness clashing with the dark, forbidding tints of melancholy she had known for far too long. The work resonated with authenticity, capturing her transitional state, caught between what she once was and who she aspired to become. Before she knew it, hours passed, the air around her thick with the aroma of paint and purpose. Exhaustion mixed with exhilaration, and Sarah suddenly realized the enormity of what she was doing. In the act of creating, she reclaimed power over her narrative, the struggle, the joy, the very essence of being alive. I want to showcase this, she declared, raising her head to meet Blake's approving gaze. I want to share this journey with others, to show them they aren't alone. Absolutely, he affirmed, the pride in his expression more powerful than any words. Your story is worth sharing. It's raw and real, and that authenticity will resonate. But even amid this success, a deep shiver of doubt interrupted her clarity. How would she share such personal revelations without reopening old wounds? Could she step forward into a world that expected her to be fully healed? As if sensing her hesitation, Blake added, it's okay to share that you're still discovering. Everyone is in a constant state of evolution. Your vulnerability could open doors for others. His reassurance settled the anxiety swirling in her chest, yet the task loomed larger than her fears. Would she truly have the courage to put herself out there? This question gnawed at her as the canvas transformed into a testament of her evolving self, echoing her journey for all to scrutinize. Then, in a moment of fervent clarity, she committed to the idea. The world would know her story, the mess of it, the beauty buried within, and the strength it demanded to emerge anew. With newfound determination lacing through her veins, Sarah took a step back from the canvas, breathing in the depth of her creation. It wasn't finished, but it was undeniably hers, and that alone felt monumental. That a flicker of an idea ignited within her mind the vision of an exhibition showcasing not just her art but her growth, the journey she carried within her. Would this be an empty leap, or could this plunge into the unknown lead her to something transformative? As she painted the final strokes, the question echoed, could this be the bridge between her past and a future filled with healthy love and authenticity? Feeling the weight of this decision hang in the air, Sarah set her brush down slowly. She was ready to confront the next phase of her journey, but a gnawing uncertainty plagued her. Would she really dare to reveal herself fully to a world that might not yet be ready for her art? What would that mean for her connection with Mark, and for the artist she was beginning to become? The moment beckoned her towards a deeper exploration, a new phase that was unwilling to be ignored. What awaited her on the other side of this artistic first step? Sarah stood before her canvas, the vibrant colors still glistening with the energy of her emotions. The vivid reds and grays swirled together represented her chaos, but they also hinted at a burgeoning resolve. It felt surreal to acknowledge that she was transforming, yet the weight of that transformation grated against her peace of mind. Doubt surfaced like a shadow, rallying her insecurities around her. The vision of an exhibition danced in her mind, fierce and alluring, contrasting against her instinct to retreat. The idea of baring her soul before an audience threatened to unearth insecurities she had begun to bury. What if her work wasn't well received? What if sharing her vulnerabilities only served to deepen the wounds she thought she had healed? These concerns echoed like unwanted murmurs in her head, making her stomach twist. Blake's encouragement lingered like the scent of paint, inviting yet underpinning her anxiety. He believed in her art, he saw its raw beauty. But would others embrace it, or would they define her by the darkness that seeped into her work? The fear of judgment clawed at her. Every inch she fantasized about newfound freedom weighed against the potential backlash of revelation, yet as she surveyed the canvas, a flicker of something formidable sparked inside her determination. It was time to act, to make tangible the steps toward this evolutionary leap she envisioned. She could see her story reaching out, an invitation for others who felt captive in their own narratives. In that moment, clarity washed over her. This wasn't merely about showcasing her art, it was about sharing the courage it took to reclaim herself. Whatever the outcome, it would still be hers, a testament to the battle she fought within. With a deep breath, she reached for her notebook, filled with disjointed ideas and sketches. It was her blueprint for the exhibition, page by page, her thoughts transformed into structured plans. How would she frame this experience? Would there be voiceovers, narrating the essence behind each piece? She couldn't help but smile at the possibilities, the blending of her ardor for art and the raw authenticity of her struggle. This realization turned the anxiety swirling in her gut into eager anticipation. The act of creation felt both exhilarating and terrifying, exactly as she had felt when putting brush to canvas, but beneath the excitement, shadows veiled the edges of her heart. Clarity ferreted out deeper questions, those about Mark, the remnants of a past that still held sway over her current landscape. Would her unveiling provoke him, awakening past heartaches they both wished to leave buried? Determined not to let the fear of her past dictate her future, she opened her heart to a hard truth. This was her defining moment. The walls of her emotional landscape were beginning to crumble, making room for renewed expressiveness. The memories of Mark would always linger, but they no longer had the power to define her direction. Once she had mapped her ideas, Sarah realized she needed to take another bold step, the risk of sharing her vision with Blake. He had been her anchor thus far, but this next conversation required vulnerability she feared might expose her limits. Would he still champion her journey when confronted with the deeper layers of her struggle? Taking a deep breath, she texted him, proposing they meet to discuss the exhibition. A moment later, she regretted her impulsive decision, the swell of uncertainty crashing over her. What if he questioned her drive, or suggested she wasn't ready? But then she silently chastised herself. Growth often resided in discomfort. It was time to endure this trial and face her emerging self with audacity. As she waited for Blake's reply, anticipation swirled within her. This could either be a moment of redemption or a sobering reminder of her lingering fears. The winds of change surrounded her, exhilarating yet daunting, a storm she was determined to navigate. With her final strokes echoing her resolve, she considered what lay ahead. Would she find the strength within her to embrace the unfolding of her story, or would the apprehension of revealing her true self prove to be a greater adversary? The seeds of transformation were planted, yet Sarah sensed a deeper challenge ahead. A singular question loomed: could vulnerability truly be the path to healing, or would it unravel everything she fought to build? The echoes of her past loomed large, waiting for engagement, while the canvas became a silent witness to the artist in flux. When Blake responded almost immediately, the notification sent a jolt of electricity through Sarah. His enthusiasm illuminated the shadows creeping around her anxious thoughts. Absolutely. Let us meet at our favorite cafe tomorrow afternoon. The simple affirmation felt like a lifeline, distracting her from the gnawing apprehension that had settled in her gut. As she prepared for their meeting, Sarah ransacked her studio for her best sketches and ideas, intent on visually communicating her vision. Yet each brushstroke she attempted to refine felt heavier than the last, the weight of self-doubt pressing down on her. What if Blake didn't understand the depth of her journey? What if he saw her vulnerabilities, not as springboards for growth, but as weaknesses? With each drawn line, she wrestled with her internal conflict, the fatalistic whisper of doubt urging her to scale back her ambition. If there was to be a method to her madness, it lay somewhere beyond the canvas, yet it remained tantalizingly out of her reach. Lost in the turmoil of a blank space reflecting her unease, she began to question every element she intended to share. Determined to counter this spiraling apprehension, she pulled up her chair and opened her notebook. Each word felt like a small triumph as she began drafting a narrative that captured not just her artistic intent, but the raw emotions fueling it. Outlining each piece was an exploration in honesty. The deeper she dove, the more clarity emerged, transforming trepidation into purpose. The next day, at the cafe, she observed Blake as he entered. He radiated a relaxed confidence that eased her nerves. When she gestured for him to join her, his smile widened, radiating an unspoken belief in her potential. Sarah had always appreciated his unwavering support. Today, it felt like an anchor in the chaotic sea of her thoughts. "Hey, Sarah. I've been looking forward to this," he said, perusing the stacks of papers and sketches on the table. "Thanks for meeting me," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I really want to share something important." As she began to lay out her plans, a mixture of excitement and dread coiled in her stomach. With each piece she explained, she sensed a shift. Blake leaned in, his focus unwavering. She could see the gears turning in his mind as he contemplated her vision. "This is incredible," he said once she finished, his face alight with enthusiasm. "You're not just showcasing art. You're telling a story that could resonate with so many." His affirmation ignited a flicker of confidence. "But what if they don't get it? What if they only see the shadows I'm trying to leave behind?" He paused, choosing his words thoughtfully. Vulnerability is a part of healing, but it's also powerful. If you expose your struggles, you might just help others feel less alone. Sarah felt a sense of relief wash over her. But what about Mark? What if the ghosts of that relationship haunt this process? "Then confront them," Blake urged, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity she often found comforting. "You can draw those shadows out, reclaim their narrative. Think of it like your art, layer it with honesty. Transform your past." A realization struck her with breathtaking clarity. The fear of Mark wasn't the barrier, it was an opportunity for deeper reflection, a way to explore her growth in the narrative she wished to share. The conversation flowed, seamlessly transitioning into a planning session where they fleshed out logistics together. This pairing of art and words began to feel like it was assembling itself into a cohesive whole. As afternoon faded into evening, Sarah emerged from their meeting feeling lighter. Yet beneath the exhilaration lay an undercurrent of trepidation. What if the very exposure she sought birthed a confrontation with her past that would threaten the newfound joy she had begun to embrace? The momentary triumph collided with a sharp reminder that battles weren't fought solely in the abstract. There were real stakes attached to this journey: confrontation, revelation. Healing. As she walked back to her studio, anticipation thrummed in her veins. Each step felt like a brushstroke, weaving her story into a tapestry that could speak to others trapped in the same shadows. But a looming question remained: was she ready to face the ghosts of her past, or would embracing vulnerability pull her deeper into chaos? In the depths of her studio, surrounded by the unfinished canvases of her history, Sarah braced herself for the inevitable confrontation ahead. Would she emerge as a phoenix, or would her past tether her to an unwavering distress? The next decision awaited her, but it demanded a commitment she hadn't yet solidified. The studio was steeped in an intimate silence, the soft hum of flickering lights matching the intricate whirl of thoughts in Sarah's mind. She stood before her easel, finally resolving to dive deeper into the shadows that threatened to consume her. Each blank canvas was a battlefield waiting for her to conquer, each paintbrush, a weapon to challenge her fears. Yet, she hesitated, completely aware that the act of creating could also mean confronting pain she had tried for so long to bury. As she painted, memories of Mark flooded her thoughts, uninvited yet persistent. The warmth of their laughter felt distant now, crumbling under the weight of disillusionment. She questioned her past decisions. Why did she remain in a relationship that left her depleted? Part of her wanted to shield herself from the reality of those choices, but as Blake had advised, perhaps it was time to confront the ghosts rather than flee from them. Her brush danced cautiously across the canvas, applying splashes of bold color interlaced with somber shades. The chaotic blend mirrored her internal struggle, vibrant hopes for the future juxtaposed with the muted heartbreak of the past. Each stroke bore the weight of her recollections, yet there was a burgeoning sense that honesty might liberate her. As the forms began to take shape, Sarah felt an awakening within her. The act of creation became therapeutic, as if she was unraveling the tightly wound threads of her narrative. With every twist and turn, patterns emerged: pain, resilience, and hope woven together. She felt lighter. The more she poured herself into her art, the clearer her vision became. An idea sparked in her mind. This exhibition was not merely a showcase of her artistic talents, it was a narrative of her journey. Could conveying her struggles through art spark similar transformations in others? The prospect thrilled her. Every vulnerability she bared could resonate with those who felt trapped in their own stories of pain. Would she be brave enough to share this vulnerable piece of her heart? The weight of her decision solidified as she considered the logbook where she had tracked her artistic evolution. Her fingers gingerly flipped through the pages filled with half-formed sketches and fragmented thoughts, the very essence of her artistic self. Could she encapsulate her journey in a way that not only encompassed her growth but also illuminated the shared struggles of others? After a brief pause, she scribbled her ideas into the pages, solidifying her intent. She had the makings of something greater than herself, an authentic testament to resilience and growth. This was a chance to challenge the narratives that had confined her, but the questions lingered: what would happen when she faced those shadows head-on? Would the art she created evoke empathy, or would it stoke the embers of pain? The answer felt elusive, hanging tantalizingly beyond her grasp. As dusk bled into night, she sat amid her creations, exhaustion settling upon her. The therapeutic process had opened a door, but she was acutely aware that stepping through could equally lead to liberation or devastation. The doubts returned, swirling around her like smoke. Was she ready to confront not only her past trauma but the reality that many would scrutinize her emotional landscape? With the first stroke of the brush already laid on the canvas, Sarah knew she had crossed a threshold. The art was now intertwined with her identity and truth. It would demand from her honesty, clarity, and strength, and at that moment, her heart raced not just with fear, but with an exhilarating sense of possibility. The journey to uncover herself had begun, but the deeper confrontation loomed ahead. Would she find the courage to reveal the depth of her journey to those beyond her studio walls, or would her past keep her anchored in hesitation, forever doubting her worth? The decision awaited her, and its ramifications echoed in the stillness of the room. There, in the heart of her studio, she felt the thrill of transformation pulsating within her. The stage was set for a reckoning that could define the artist she was destined to become. With dawn's light spilling through the open window, Sarah's heart raced anew. The soft golden rays illuminated her studio, casting a warm glow on her blank canvas. She realized she needed to continue what she had started. This was more than mere paint, it was her voice emerging from the depths of silence. Each stroke was not just pigment on canvas but a declaration of her commitment to unveil her truth, no matter how unsettling it might feel. As she dipped the brush into vibrant red paint, reminiscent of her buried passions, she felt the rush of emotion flutter within her. The color flowed under her hand, transforming into bold shapes. She lingered on some areas intense, weighty strokes that mimicked her simmering frustrations, while lighter strokes depicted fleeting moments of joy from days gone by. This interplay was revealing. Every aspect of her feelings found its release in various hues, manifesting her complex emotional landscape. The exhilarating weight of authenticity whispered to her in the back of her mind. Would this artistic exploration pave the way for deeper self-acceptance? As she painted, Sarah found herself reflecting on Blake's encouraging words. They echoed in her mind, challenging her perception of vulnerability. Strength lies in authenticity. She considered the moments spent with him. He, with his unflinching acceptance of her flaws, inspired her to embrace her imperfections and extend that same acceptance toward herself. In moments of intense introspection, she paused, staring at her transformation on the canvas. Was she truly ready to bare her soul? The tantalizing thought of exposing her fragility sent both chills and shivers through her. It was one thing to confront her shadows inside the safety of her studio and another entirely to allow others to see them. The thought of her upcoming exhibition weighed heavily on her. She envisioned the audience, their eyes fixed on her work, dissecting not just the colors and forms but the very essence of her reflections. Could she withstand the scrutiny? What if they didn't see her resilience, only the flaws? As she lost herself in contemplation, a sudden revelation washed over her. If she could summon the courage to express her pain, perhaps it could resonate with those who had also wrestled with their own shadows. Perhaps authenticity was more than a personal exploration, it could be a bridge to connect with others. Fueled by this newfound understanding, her resolve hardened. She would create a series that captured the shifts in her emotional landscape, a visual narrative denoting her journey from darkness into light. This was not merely a collection for others, but a map of her transformation, her evolution from feeling trapped within her circumstances to becoming a beacon of possibility and strength. Determined, she picked up her brush again, new energies burning within her. The rawness of her experience became clearer, an unfolding story ready to be committed to canvas. In this moment, Sarah realized she had the ability to curate her own narrative, not merely surviving her pain but rising above it. Each stroke transformed her doubt into power as she embraced her artistic vulnerability, an act almost revolutionary, but beneath this revolutionary surge lay the pulse of anxiety. What if, despite everything, she still faltered in her path to expression? What if after all her explorations, she found only the void of her past, and yet, she pressed on, strength flickering in her heart as she drove the brush against the texture. The doubt remained, a persistent weight on her shoulder, but this time it was met with a quiet challenge. The answer loomed on the horizon. The exhibition was not merely a benchmark of success or failure, it was a declaration of her journey and an invitation for others to explore their resilience. As she stepped back to survey her emerging creation, something deeper flickered inside her. The confrontation was imminent, and the energy of that unfolding moment felt electric. It was time to face the inevitable question: would she rise to meet the challenges of vulnerability and expression, or hide once more in the safety of silence, allowing her doubts to silence her voice? The moment of decision lingered, yet she stood ready, poised to embrace whatever lay ahead. As the sun reached its apex, bathing her studio in a bright brilliance, Sarah stared at her canvas with unwavering determination. The bold colors she had created started to form a coherent narrative, a chaotic yet beautiful exploration of her inner struggle. She sensed a shift within, as if each brushstroke granted her the courage to confront not just her past but also the uncertainty that lay ahead. Her fingers trembled slightly as they danced across the canvas, bringing to life a depth she had only begun to explore. Each hue embraced the contradictions of her existence, the fiery passion of the reds juxtaposed against the soothing cool of the blues, embodying her tumultuous emotions. But as the forms surged to life, so did the anxiety seep back in. The voices of doubt whispered ominously, deterring her from fully embracing the brilliance before her. Would this piece, this honest reflection, truly resonate with others? Or would it simply expose her vulnerabilities without purpose? The dichotomy of her expectations hung thick in the air, stifling her next impulse. She closed her eyes, grounding herself, recalling Blake's unwavering faith in her ability to transcend her fears. The image of him, standing by her side with confidence sewn into his every word, infused her with a flicker of resolve. In a sudden burst of inspiration, Sarah glanced away from her work and grabbed a fresh canvas, determined to translate her emotional upheaval into a multifaceted series representing layers of her journey. She envisaged them stacked upon one another, deep abysses of despair flowing into vibrant representations of hope and healing, a path made tangible through art. But was she equipped to navigate this multitude of feelings? Could her interpretations even come close to encapsulating the vastness of her experience? With urgency tinged by self-doubt, she dashed into her memory. Every stumble along her path, the peers who didn't recognize her worth, all the relationships that dissolved in bitterness, it marked her artistic journey. Contrasting her past struggles with her burgeoning strength instilled a sense of urgency she hadn't fathomed before. It was pivotal. She would not shy away from showing how she wrestled with darkness. She would celebrate her resilience, ride the exhilarating wave of vulnerability instead. As the hours melted into each other, Sarah was enveloped in her creative cocoon. Paintbrush in hand, she became a vessel for transformation. She poured her essence into the canvas, seamlessly blending colors and emotions, each new layer a testament to sites of healing she had previously ignored. Yet, as she progressed, a dark thought pricked the edge of her consciousness. What if she failed to capture the complexities that made her journey uniquely hers? The recurring doubt felt like a weight on her chest, stifling her breath. Rubbing the back of her neck, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. The exhibition loomed closer. Would her insights, her very essence, be understood? Or would her offerings be judged, valued only for their aesthetic qualities rather than their emotional truths? In that moment, she glanced towards the door. Memories flooded back, each note, each brushstroke a reference point of her struggles and triumphs. Messy and beautiful, they had all brought her to this juncture. Wasn't he preserving that authenticity worth the risk? A new determination surged within her. She would not merely display art. She would share her story and narrative woven with threads of heartbreak and healing. With every stroke, she not only confronted her past but also the scrutiny that awaited. It wasn't he merely painting, it was a declaration of her existence and transformation, a profound synthesis of struggle and triumph. Just as she began to sense an exhilarating thrill manage the anxiety swirling in her belly, the door swung open. Blake stepped inside, but he wasn't alone. A shadow followed behind him, a specter of concern etched across a familiar face, someone who had haunted her past. "Sarah, you need to see this," Blake said, his tone urgent. "What is it?" she replied, her heart pounding. As her eyes locked onto the newcomer, she felt an unsettling rush of dread and anticipation begin to churn within her. Would this be another plunge into familiar turmoil, or a moment to seize the narrative anew? The air crackled, thick with tension, as her journey took yet another unexpected turn. The tension in the studio was palpable as Sarah recognized the familiar figure standing next to Blake. It was Mark, his expression a blend of hope and uncertainty. In that moment, time seemed to suspend as conflicting emotions surged through her. The ghost of their past rendezvous hovered between them, a reminder of their entangled history that once felt like home but now lingered, colored by pain and regret. "Sarah," Mark began, his voice low yet urgent. "I know things have been complicated. I've come to apologize. I understand now how my actions affected you, and I want to take responsibility." His words echoed in the quiet space, slicing through the years of unspoken turmoil. Sarah felt her heart race, confusion mingling with the firm resolve she had cultivated through the recent challenges. "Apologies are just words without change," she replied, deliberately steadying her voice. "You need to prove you're willing to put in the work." Mark nodded, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. He had always struggled to confront his demons, but Sarah now embraced a new clarity. The person standing before her was not the same boy who had once stirred her heart, he was now a shadow yearning for redemption. Yet, she was no longer tethered to the heaviness of obligation or guilt. "How can I believe you this time?" Sarah asked. "I've spent so long focusing on your needs, but now I need to ensure my healing path doesn't grow dark again." Blake's steady presence offered Sarah support, a reminder of the new life she was carving out. The contrast between them felt like light breaking through clouds. She turned to him, seeking affirmation of her newfound sense of self. He smiled encouragingly, affirming her strength with a nod, and she felt the weight of expectation lift just slightly from her shoulders. This confrontation, though charged, became a catalyst for Sarah to articulate what it meant to reclaim her identity. "I'm not here to save you, Mark. I want to step into my own life and explore what that truly means, not as your partner or caretaker, but as Sarah, the artist who is learning to color outside the lines." Mark's expression shifted toward acceptance, realization emanating from his demeanor. "I understand," he replied softly, his vulnerability now matched by an evident resolve. "All I can offer is my willingness to change. If you want to move on, I respect that, even if it means without me." And just like that, the weight of their history began to dissolve, revealing a path for both to walk forward in their separate journeys. As the conversation deepened, Sarah felt the tight grip of sorrow loosen its hold. Looking into Mark's eyes, she realized she could now forgive, not to absolve him but to free herself. This was not a simple reunion, it was a farewell, a decision she was ready to fully embrace. "Thank you for being honest." "I wish you healing," she replied, and the sincerity in her tone felt liberating. Mark met her gaze, and for the first time, they both comprehended the true gravity of closure. Feeling empowered, Sarah turned away from Mark and faced Blake, who stood gently encouraging her emergence from struggle. "I want to share my story at the exhibition," she declared, her voice thick with determination. "This isn't merely about my art but healing, vulnerability, and resilience." I want others to see the beauty that can emerge from even the darkest beginnings. With Blake's unwavering belief in her vision, Sarah dove into the preparations. She meticulously shaped her narrative, blending her paintings with her written experiences, her struggles, and the growth that awaited her audience. Audience members were not just viewers, they were fellow travelers on journeys of healing, and she was ready to meet them with her truth. The night of the exhibition arrived, a vibrant canvas of colors reflecting her story adorned the walls. Each piece resonated with unfiltered emotion laid bare for all to witness. Inviting others to share in her exploration of healing became an exhilarating reality. As guests moved through the gallery, Sarah watched their faces light up with recognition. The connection between her experience and theirs ignited a powerful exchange. Each interaction transformed her fear into affirmation. For the first time, she felt the courage to share not only the beauty of her art but also the raw edges of her journey, the chaos, the recovery, and the emergence of authentic self-love. In that bustling room, the shattered remnants of her past began to blend into the richness of her present. No longer an understudy in her own life, Sarah had become the leading lady of her story, a professional, empowered, and fully realized artist. The pinnacle of her journey was not just in overcoming but in embracing her shadows while walking boldly toward the light of accountability, creativity, and love. As the final guests departed, Sarah felt a quiet victory within. She had transcended the pain of her past and emerged into a future full of promise. The exhibition became a blossoming ground not just for her art, it represented the triumph of her spirit, her new foundation, and the acknowledgement that healing was an ongoing journey rather than a singular destination. As she tidied up the remnants of the night, her heart swelled with fulfillment. Sarah had not only shared her story but had begun to live it, unleashing a brighter chapter marked by resilience and strength, spurred by authentic self-discovery. And with a known truth echoing in her heart, she was ready to continue creating the life she always aspired to live. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to subscribe now and witness more incredible transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, as your support truly matters. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending, as we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to spread the journey of finding strength in vulnerability.